Space. The final frontier. These are not the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Quite the opposite, in fact. For every ship blasting off into that wild black yonder, there needs to be someone back on Earth signing the checks. And the person signing the checks is never the friend of those making money for them. This is where we find ourselves today, in the employ of the Lynx Corporation. Our lives literally handed to them as they hold the ability to clone us should the worst happen as a life insurance policy. It is our mission to break down the derelicts that come clamoring back to Earth, strip them for parts, and pass the wealth trapped within these husks on to our corporate overlords. Still, it's honest work, and helps to pass the days, with a plasma cutter in one hand, a grappling tether in the other, and a thruster on my back. Wait, what happened to my thruster? Yeah, crap. Gonna be one of those days, huh? Howdy, I'm Prakuza and welcome to DevBox, where we pick apart our favorite games and see what makes them tick. And an extra special welcome to the more than 1,000 of you out there who have joined our little gaming adventure. Today, to celebrate the channel hitting 1,000 subscribers, I want to showcase one of my favorite games from the last few years. But of course I can't simply show you what this game looks like normally. No, that's not how we do things on this channel. Instead, we'll be forsaking the thruster that normally carts me around the yard, and relying completely on other means to get our jobs done for today, tomorrow, and on to retirement. So, it's time to ask the question, can we beat HARDSPACE SHIPBREAKER without using the thruster? A part of me really wants to call this the tether-only run, but that unfortunately doesn't exactly track with how I need to go about doing things. That being said, how am I going about doing things? Well, first up is this whole no thruster part. This means I can't use my thrusters to move up and down, forward and back, left or right. There's one other stipulation that I started to add to the list of things I'm not allowed to do by my second ship. But for the first one we're breaking down, I'm still working on hammering in the rules. So, for the footage you're watching now, I'll be reorienting myself the normal way periodically. But by the next cut, I'll be doing that without thrusters and pulling a little trick to orient myself whenever I need to. In that case, yes, challenge forfeited for the sticklers in the audience. Anyway, without the ability to move normally, it might be odd that I'm even able to get to the ship and start cutting, huh? Well, the devs actually thought of that, for the handful of times when players would be stuck out on a shift without any thruster fuel. Turns out, the grapple can be used to pull ourselves towards objects, which means that we can zero-G Spider-Man our way from point A to point B. Although this isn't exactly the safest method, as we can easily start to move way too fast and crash right into the side of the ship, or one of those buoy things that I have to use to swing on for now. And if I hit too hard, well... And we certainly don't want that happening too often. Because to add a little extra challenge to this run, I decided to play on no revival mode. That's right, this is a permadeath run, with a hard reset if I ever die. And as the game starts to throw more and more dangers at me, death is going to be harder to avoid. And an even bigger time sink as I have to make my way back through the story. One more thing to note, for photosensitive viewers, I'll be doing my best to keep from showing flashing lights too often. And if we get to a point where it's necessary, I'll give a little text on screen and play this sound. However, this game is absolutely full of moments where bright lights will flash across the screen. In fact, we're going to give the warning real quick, so I can show everyone what I mean about how bad it can get sometimes. Yeah, so for anyone extremely photosensitive, feel free to get off this train now, or skip to the conclusion to get a quick breakdown of how the run went if you're curious. Alright, well, with all of the nitty-gritty out of the way, let's get started in full force. Our first mission is to break down the Triton, a mackerel-heavy cargo. Why did I pick this one? Well, it gives the best rewards for hitting the different salvage milestones. It's a pretty thin margin for these initial ships, but a few extra master points and Lynx tokens goes a long way. The reason for this is that while this game is mostly a cozy zone-out game about breaking down ships, making it through the career mode requires improving my cutter rank with the mastery points, or MP. Additionally, the Links tokens, or LT, will give me the ability to buy upgrades to my plasma cutter, my grappler, my helmet, my suit, No. And I even unlock a new tool altogether once I hit rank 11. So MP and LT are the most important things to look for on any job. This also means that we'll be going for as high of a completion percentage as possible for each ship. For our first ship, that means... And that right there is a job well done, with absolutely no struggles on the way. No problems at all. Well, that's one ship down, and maybe another 24 more to go. Yeah, the career mode in this game is long, and it's honestly a lot of this. So let's skip ahead for a bit until we get to some trouble. As we quickly level up, we're also picking up some upgrades on the way. Increased grappler range and strength, as well as the ability to tether items together. I rarely use that in the way that the opening cutscene showcases it, but the tethers are still great for getting larger pieces of salvage into the processor or furnace without much issue. Alongside those upgrades, we're also upgrading the range and strength of our plasma cutter. And whenever we get the chance, we absolutely want to upgrade oxygen, so that we don't have to make the mad dash to refill as often. Because, sometimes it gets messy. Well, we've got a few ships under our belt, and we've also started to meet the rest of the crew here at our station. We never interact with them outside of a few one-sided conversations, but they're a good bunch of other cutters. First there's Weaver, the foreman. He's a good-hearted soul, but has definitely lived under the thumb of the corpos for a little too long, accepting his place in the company and advises that everyone keeps their head down and not cause trouble. Next is Lou, the newbie before us, who's full of youth and ready to fight against our corporate overlords, even willing to rock the boat to do so. Then we've got Dee Dee, a hard worker who's looking to support her daughter on Mars, and very much doesn't like how Lou rocks the boat, because she needs to keep her job. Finally, there's Kaito, or Kai, boy, how do I put this nicely? He needs more hands-on training in order to meet his potential as a cutter. Which is to say, he's currently a bit of a fuck-up. Sorry, Kai. I believe in you. You'll prove yourself eventually. With all of those characters, we can start talking about what's been happening with them as we've been going. For one, someone, who we couldn't possibly guess who, starts to send us information about putting together a union. Then, Weaver gives us his old car. It's a junker, but Lou hooks us up with a program to help us start repairing it. This will be our secondary goal for the remainder of the game, outside of paying off our billion-dollar debt. So, how are we going to do that? Easy. Continue to break apart ships until we've got the money and parts to retire. Let's start with this ship, the Clody. I mean, sure, they're childhood sweethearts, but were they even really friends? It's like someone telling you that the weird kid who ate glue and stalked you around the quad in high school is your soulmate because you two were born in the same town. Get out, Tifa. There's a whole world of love better for you. How about this one? The Clarith. Sure, it looks sweet, but hey, doesn't he look a lot like her dead boyfriend? Dresses the same, uses the same weapon, is a hollow shell of a man with no real personality on the inside that allows all of his friends to imprint whatever preferred version of himself that they want to on him. Aerith. I think that jumping into a relationship now isn't in your best interest. You need some time to reflect and see what you are outside of being someone's significant other. And then we've got the Areti. Nope, we're good. Nothing to cut down here. Bye. Well, as we continue, we've got a new wrinkle to the game. One that I will absolutely not be engaging with as this run continues because I don't have to, and you can't make me. It is the Quasar thrusters. Literally the only thing I would consider necessary of critique in this entire game. No joke, I hate these things. Although I'm definitely sure that there will be some folks who will disagree because it's one of few moments of intense action across any ships. But for me, the exciting parts only stress me out in what is otherwise my go-to relaxation game. However, for this run specifically, it means pushing my face into flaming tubes on repeat until I hopefully get to the fuel shutoff before dying. And considering that this is a permadeath run, I will be avoiding that danger like the plague. Also, while I'm here on my soapbox, I want to point this issue out, real quick. For some reason, the outer shell of these thrusters never want to go into the processor. They get close, but then the physics decides that it needs to slide out of the correct bin and move its way into the furnace. Like, the game doesn't need to run perfectly. I understand this is an indie developer and it can be difficult for a team working on a smaller budget to polish every single aspect, especially with how difficult physics are to program. Still, it annoys me. I would love for it to get fixed, but I might honestly love for HARDSPACE 2 to get worked on more, because I love this game to death and am super excited to see whatever else Blackbird Interactive has ready for us. Okay, moving on. The plot has begun to thicken. Turns out, the Corpos aren't super excited about the murmuring of union organizers trying to get our crew some workers' rights. So, we get a personal message from Link's president, Calicia Ray Paulson, to tell us that we're getting a new antagonist, middle manager Hal Rhodes. He was a worker like us, doing the backbreaking work of processing before trying to make our little crew work like an extended part of this corporate family. No need to get those messy unions all mixed up with our individual relationships with Links. Yeah, in case the billion-dollar debt we took on to work here, or the AI assistant's voice telling us that running low on oxygen is bad for productivity wasn't enough to clue us in, we're in one of those games. With the main theme being about workers' rights and the oppressive state of large corporations squeezing their employees for productivity. Love it! But for now, we're getting back to some more shipbreaking. Nope, not touching that. Nah, low-hanging fruit isn't exactly my style. I guess I'll take that one. Although I don't know. I don't know if my heart's really gonna be in it. I mean, yeah, sure. I guess it's kind of toxic, maybe? I don't know, but, Mortal Instruments is good, right? Okay, that's enough of that bit that I hope doesn't make the comment section too toxic. Let's get back to the actual space vehicles and start tearing them to pieces. And I've found the perfect specimen to showcase here. The Javelin model. These are by far my favorite model of ships to break down. They're built like a train, and you take apart each car one by one. Considering that it's the meticulous nature of the game that puts me in the zone so well, these ships hit that vibe perfectly. However, there is one hiccup on these that I always struggle with, and I've actually come up with a new strategy for how to handle them in the future as a result of being too scared to die throughout this run. But for now, unhooking these big fuel tanks is a nightmare for me, because the slightest movement in the wrong direction and...
Switch it destroyed. Don't do that.
The cut point is situated right behind the main tank, and while I can shut off the valve that makes the squid-shaped pipe system volatile, there's nothing I can do to make the tank not explode at the lightest touch from my plasma cutter. So I blow up a few of these on this run, because I don't have perfect control of my movement without my thruster. I should also note that by now, I've learned a fundamental part of the experience when not using the thruster. I've started to learn how to use my hands to grab and pull my way through the ship. For anyone who's played before and wonders why I'm always using both hands every time, it's because I have them both mapped to the same button, so that I could free up their original buttons for that thruster-powered reorienting that I used a lot more in my casual playthrough. This isn't exactly an elegant solution, but it works. It especially comes in handy for the next major update to my cutter duties. I've been cleared to start breaking down level 2 reactors, the bigger version of these little cubes that electrocute me if I get too close. And to teach me how to do it, we get a handy-dandy tutorial level. Hal doesn't seem too excited, but Weaver runs me through the process and I get the reactor out nice and safely, dropping it into the barge where it stops melting down and won't electrocute me anymore. And as I get my work done, more developments begin to take place among the Lynx crew. For starters, Hal has given us access to demo charges. Basically those conical det charges the military uses for breaching armored doors and such, except these create a flat cutting plane that rips through everything it touches. Materials for processing, high-level cut points, or naturally, us. Dee Dee isn't too fond of these new demo charges because they aren't new. They're an old tool that had been discontinued. She'd personally been blasted to pieces by a handful of them. Once again, the cloning life insurance policy, while not active for this playthrough, is baked pretty directly into the story. So pretty much everyone in this crew has canonically died at least once while on the job. Safety third, after all. Well, Hal isn't a fan of getting talked back to, so he cuts Dee Dee's comms to her family on Mars, which does not sit well with her, considering that she calls back home daily and is doing this job for the sake of that very family in the first place. Weaver tries to calm us all down on a private channel that Hal isn't privy to, but mutinous intentions begin to boil over among the crew. And we're back to shipbreaking. Would you look at that, another javelin, only this one is a bigger boy. Full disclosure, these are probably going to be what I break down for the rest of this run. We're getting close to the end of this actually, sitting comfortably at rank 12. The run ends somewhere around rank 20, although the exact endpoint is a bit random and depends on your exact number of outings from Hab to Cutting Yard. Now that we've hit this rank, we also get to start learning how to salvage a power generator. It's not exactly the most difficult procedure. Find the 3 fuses and activate them when the lights turn off. Then we can pull the power generator out of the little path I made and drop it into the barge. Not too dissimilar to the good old Class 2 reactor, although each step has a higher chance of dealing damage to me. It never did across the dozens of hours this run took, but the threat was always there. But that's essentially the hardest that this game gets. And now it's a straightforward progression of same ol' until the credits. Alright, so let's get to that end game.
Terminal injury detected. This event may be recorded for training and quality purposes. Contract terminated.
Fuck. Not gonna lie. This right here, this was devastating. I had to set the game down for the rest of the day because, let's remember, I started this run with no revivals available. So, this is a hard reset. But you know what? Pick the game back up the next day, I relearned the early use of the grapple, and die 2 more times. At like the exact same point in the game. Literally, rank 9 and 13. All basically around the point where I first get demo charges and have to do the training mission for the power generator. It is equally devastating each time. I really debated dropping down to limited revives or even standard difficulty. In fact, I could use a break.
Fatal injury detected. Initiating employee offboarding procedure. Contract terminated.
Well, since I kept picking Entamatarian, let's make that type of meal. What's that word mean anyway? Oh, bugs. Well, good thing shrimps are bugs. Let's thaw some out by placing a handful in a bowl and pouring some water over it. Cover fully, then drain, then cover again, and let rest in the room temperature water until it's malleable enough to remove the shells. Now for some prep. Let's mince some jalapeno, chop some onion, and finally smash and slice some garlic. Then to round out the veggies, peel and slice some carrots. Finally, we'll dice some eggplant. We've got homegrown Japanese eggplant today. Delicious stuff. Next, we've got to make our sauce. A bit of soy, equal parts mirin, a dollop of oyster sauce, few dashes of fish sauce, a scoop of miso paste, and finally, some type of sugar. We're going with honey for today. Now we can mix that with some sesame oil and drop in some cornstarch to mix it all into a workable emulsion. Even if it separates now, it'll come together in the pan. Prep finished, we'll put some hot nudes on a boil and throw our onions in a pan with some butter. Let those onions turn translucent and drop in the garlic and jalapeno. Let that bloom, then add in the carrots. Let those soften, then throw in the eggplant. Let that... whatever, it's time to drop in the shrimp. Alright. Everything is all fried up. So, drain the nudes and flop them into the pan, give it a robust stir, then make a little hole for the sauce. Let that cook down for a second and mix it in with everything else. There you go. You've got Prakuza's Shrimpy glass nudes. Would this have been better to make in a wok? Of course. Should I have done the stir-fry method of cooking in stages? Of course. Was this still the best meal I've eaten in months? Of course. Who knew bugs were so tasty? Alright, fourth time is the charm. In fact, that's my name that will hopefully take me to the end. And yep, let's get into that endgame. For real this time. After finally getting through the power generator, we continue to unlock more and more stuff. Like those demo charges that Dee Dee wasn't a fan of. Couldn't possibly be the fact that they absolutely destroy everything they explode near. Like this fuel tank. Would you believe that this didn't kill me? Because I couldn't. Definitely thought I was staring down the barrel of another reset. Now, at this point, with the clarity of some good food in my belly, I should take the time to really break down exactly how I pick these ships apart. The game's all about being meticulous and taking your time to strip the whole ship bare. So, let's see the step-by-step of that process. First, I circle around the outside of the ship, grabbing up any antennas or other attached pieces that can either be pulled off with the grapple or quickly cut and removed with the plasma cutter. Once the outside has been stripped of everything valuable, usually stuff that goes in the barge, I head inside and start to peel away the outside layer. This is mostly nanocarbon material, so it all goes in the processing bin, the big blue hole. In the case of these javelins, I start from the back because the next thing I want to take care of is the most dangerous piece, the thruster and the reactor. I like to have them out of the way as quickly as possible. Next, I head to the co-pilot seat. I'm actually not sure what this is supposed to be, but I tear it down, pull all of the valuables out of it, and send the frame off to processing. The tube goes into the incinerator. I used to cut it apart to get the maximum efficiency, but it's so hard to actually cut perfectly when I can't use my thrusters to reorient myself. So it all goes in the furnace for now. Finally for this back section is the center, which goes entirely into the barge. There are parts that could go into the furnace, but so much of what is in there is tiny, meticulous little things that take forever to pull out and throw into the barge individually, so I've gotten into the habit of saying fuck it for the stuff that could get incinerated and dropping the entire thing below. With the back end done, we can start taking on the fuel tanks. Not gonna lie, I'm not a huge fan of this version of the fuel tanks, because as I mentioned earlier, getting the center part out and into the barge is a giant hassle that is not worth the trouble. I've popped these more times than I can count, and I've got 9 whole fingers. Eventually, I figure that the value of the tank itself isn't all that impressive, and on future ones it goes right into the processor without being pulled apart. For this one though, I uncouple the extended tank things, cut them away, and send them on their way one at a time. Then I do the stuff I've already shown. Now, we're finally in the front section, and we mostly get an easy time of peeling away the outer shell and dropping the center directly into the barge. But don't forget to grab a bunch of those car parts. Future javelins don't exactly allow for this exact strategy on the front end of the train, but these ones are easy enough. It's basically an easier repeat of the back end. Couldn't possibly get killed on this part. Definitely wouldn't get crushed because the physics of the pieces sometimes wonk out and smash me into instant death. And that's the whole process from start to finish. I really cannot stress how amazing it feels to break these ships apart. Probably the closest I've ever come to the tranquility some folks get out of meditating. My brain ping-pongs around too much to ever really get that without something to focus my higher functions on. Meanwhile, back at the plot, Hal continues to push the crew more and more, with Kai specifically falling short because he's already not great at the job. And this gets compounded with the fact that Hal refuses to actually provide time for training. This ends with Hal gaslighting Kai and calling him in for a meeting. Although that doesn't seem to go anywhere for now, as Kai doesn't even get a real punishment later on. Well, regardless, Lou takes the opportunity to reach out to the Union at large and attempt getting them to help our crew. For now though, I get a brand new ship to try out on. It's a tough one, but still plenty enjoyable. My entire first shift is pretty much only prep. Stripping the outside stuff and breaking down the inside so I can send all of the nanocarbon to processing on my second shift. But eventually, patience wins out and we gather up as much MP and LT as we can. That's all that really matters at this point. And with that new ship behind us, we've got some more plot developments to address, such as Lou getting caught sending a message out to the Union. Hal takes that one personally and suspends her, forcing her to stay in her hab while Lynx continues to charge her for every day she uses it. Everyone else is predictably upset, and Hal starts lashing out against everyone, cutting Weaver's comms to the rest of us, stopping Dee Dee's payments to her family on Mars, and he takes the car Weaver gave me? What the actual fuck? Oh, it's personal now, Hal. You get in here and you face these hands. I'll show you how punchable that smug fucking face is, you son of a bitch. After our next shift, as the others are preparing to execute something called industrial action, Kai reveals that he's the one who gave Hal access to the Union channel and got Lou locked up. Defeated, everyone returns to work and I find a new class of ship to work on. These are known as ghost ships. There's some odd backstory happening on the back end of this that I used to know more about, but for now I can't really remember. Something about a rogue AI, possibly alien in origin, that is looking to expand out across more ships and into the Lynx network. Not sure exactly where that goes, but if you want to find out for yourself, then maybe support the game. Seriously, this game is amazing, and I can't suggest people play it enough. Anyway, from a gameplay sense, what this ghost ship means is that it's a special class of ship with a unique paint job. It also has these little guys in it, AI nodes that will cost us a lot of money and ship progress if we fail to disable them before salvaging the rest of the ship. There's two ways to destroy these. One is to fry them with the plasma cutter, which is what I do with all of those here. The second is to throw them in the furnace, which is fine if they're attached to something that needs to be incinerated anyway, but usually they're latched onto something valuable and should instead get the cutter. Also, when they die, they scream, like this. It's unnerving. Oh, and until they're all killed, the music changes. It's kind of dark and moody, gives a subtle horror vibe, but this ship also gives us some of the final pieces we need for our car. So, you know, if we still had it, I'm still ready to punch Hal in that fucking face fist. Once we've got that out of the way, it's time to actually head into the finale. It's been a long time coming, but with a new message from Lou, hidden in a piece of spam mail, our crew gets the confidence to go after the industrial action. One of the most satisfying breakdowns in the game, as long as it's done right. So, industrial action is when we finally stick it to Hal, and each of us starts to ruin the ship we're working on. It's another one of those later ships, the Gecko class. Simple enough, pull it apart from the inside out, only this time, we're sending everything into the furnace. That's right. We're incinerating everything around here. Nanocarbon into the furnace. Airlock control panels into the furnace. Thrusters into the... Actually, I got a better idea for what to do with that one.
Salvage destroyed.
Oh, yeah. That's that good shit right there. Totally worth crashing my game the first time, losing 40 minutes of footage and having to completely redo this entire mission. I've also seen some complaints online about a lot of folks throwing demo charges willy-nilly and being annoyed that they have to pick apart all of the trash in order to actually hit one of the goals needed to finish the mission. So always make sure to break down everything the normal way until you've peeled away the entire outer layer before setting off the demo charges. This finished it for me in one clean shot. Also, while I've been going over this, Hal is losing his cool, constantly trying to shut down our yards and stopping us from destroying anything else. Interestingly enough, it also cuts my HUD, which makes it so that it's kind of hard to realize that I'm suffocating out here while the plot is happening. Anyway, Hal gets so annoyed that he deletes Kai's backup data for cloning to urge him to stop working. But Kai is holding a reactor that is currently in meltdown. And... well, that about does it. Hal is on the hook for murder, his incendiary comments against the crew goes viral, and forces sweeping changes that the newly founded Cutters Union gets from the company. And Hal is demoted to processing, real back-breaking labor. And we got our car back. Yay! All's well that ends well. As a result of the new deals, we even get $1 billion off our debt marked off, which puts us in the green. Combine that with having finished repairing the car, and we get to finally quit and head out into what Weaver calls the Great Wide Open. Having been through enough during the playthrough, I've already hit the necessary milestones to get the ending now and finally be free of this fucking challenge. I'd like to note that this was probably my favorite challenge run on the channel so far, but boy did it love to waste my fucking time with those mid-game deaths. Anyway, can we beat HARDSPACE SHIPBREAKER without using the thruster? Absolutely. In fact, the game is pretty meticulously built with that being a viable option. You know, so you aren't stranded whenever you run out of thruster fuel. Still, it's a tough challenge that really made the you only live once playthrough that much more daring. And if there's one thing I can leave this run with, it's that everyone ever should pick up HARDSPACE SHIPBREAKER. This game is amazing. The perfect chill-out zone game, and I'll definitely be coming back to it again and again. Although maybe not on the channel. If there's a second thing to leave this run with, it's a hearty thank you to you watching this video right now, and the more than 1,000 people who've subscribed to the channel. And half of that number seems to have come in the last few weeks, thanks to that Mimic video. So, I know this is a weird run to pick to celebrate this milestone for a channel that's mostly about From Software games, but I wanted to take this chance to share something important to me with all of you who have helped us get here. I really can't express how much it means to me to see people enjoying that last video and checking out the rest of the channel. Now I feel like I can keep confidently working on bigger and better videos. Hey, it's that time again. The end of the video where I invite folks to come check out the Patreon. Link in the description. And make good on the rewards for those currently pledged. Patreon members get early access to videos and their names written in the credits at the end of videos. And those who pledge $5 or more get their names read out, like Azul. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching. Oh, also, Kai survived in the end? Almost forgot.
I was about to yell at you.
Nephews splash in the waves. You know, when I first took up the foreman gig, I figured it was for the money. Then, it got so the money didn't matter. Mattered most was